welcome to the Sunday Pseudoscience Spectacular. Pseudoscience Sunday Spectacular. I intend on this being a weekly series of my research, it'll be a summarization of my research of the week. As you may know, I in my spare time I like to study lesser theories that are not as widely accepted by the broader scientific community. Today's topic will be Hollow Earth. So what is the Hollow Earth? Well, we've heard of Earth. What if you did a cross section of this Earth and it revealed that it was, let me see if I can, hollow inside. I tried to make it look like a coconut that had been cut in half. I don't know why I made it an oval. The theory is that all of these years the Earth has been hollow. Now, the broader scientific community has accepted the multiple cores theory, where you have an outer layer of crust, and then an interior core, an outer core, and then an inner core. There's a mantle in there somewhere. Absolutely ridiculous. You cannot have all of that molten iron and nickel. They say it's filled with iron and nickel, melted, and you just cannot have that inside of the planet and not have it constantly be on fire. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Therefore, that's wrong, okay? What's really going on is, yes, there is an outer crust. However, there are two openings. Okay? This is the North Pole. This is the South Pole. I'll put it up like this so you can read, so you don't have to read it upside down. This is one entrance to the interior of the Earth, and this is another. They are located on the poles, and there are, maybe a couple scattered across the globe. It is believed that the Aztecs had found one, the Incans too, for that matter, the Egyptians. Basically anywhere where there's pyramids, that's a sign that the interior peoples have. That is a sign that the interior peoples have contacted that civilization. Now you may be wondering, interior peoples? What? Well, here's what happened. So, I'm sure we've all heard of the dinosaurs, right? Draw a quick dinosaur here. So this is an approximation of what a dinosaur looks like. Now, there are many different kinds of dinosaurs, but what happened was there was a dinosaur that was far more intelligent than humans, okay? This is the Anunnaki race. The Anunnaki, as I said before, dinosaur race, far more intelligent than humans, But the atmosphere of the planet changed some long time ago. And what happened was there was not enough oxygen on the surface to support such a large reptile. So what they did was they retreated to the caves and eventually took over the interior. Now you may be wondering, how could such a race sustain itself for thousands of years and without sunlight? Artificial sun. There is an artificial sun within the earth which is contained. I mentioned before, this is not going to work. Your planet's going to burn if you have molten magma inside of it. But if you have this small interior sun, which is contained with electromagnetic technology vastly beyond what the human race is capable of, that will not set the planet on fire. That brings me to my next point. The Anunnaki spacecraft. Now, does this look familiar? It should. This is a flying saucer. A UFO, some people call them. A UFO, a flying saucer. This is what the Anunnaki used to get around on the surface. That's why they're commonly spotted. It's not from space, which is why I put it in quotations. It's actually from the center of the planet. This is done by using the same technology that is used to contain the radiation of the sun. It's all electromagnetic. I don't know what you would call it because, well, frankly, I don't think that my human brain could understand it. Yeah, it basically creates a negative pulse. What it does is it creates a negative pulse of magnetic energy, and it just shoots it down to the surface. Now there's a bunch of ferrous metals in the surface, which is what allows it to float. And of course there's other propulsion systems that allow it to, without those it would just go up and down, but it does have means to go any direction, really. Now the Anunnaki, they don't take their flying saucers to space, and they don't have the necessary resources to build such a craft. Okay, that is why in 1969, you may know what happened that year. In 1969, hope I'm in frame right now. In 1969, we went from Earth in a rocket ship to the moon, the Earth's only natural satellite. Okay? Why would we do that? Well, history would dictate that the US was in a Cold War with a former empire known as the Soviet Union. And the Soviets began launching satellites into space, most famously the Sputnik satellite. And, people were starting to rumble, supposedly, saying, oh, well, these communists, they're doing space stuff. Why can't we capitalists seem to do that? Is our entire system of economics terrible? No, we can't be having that. We're the US of A, baby. All of that is untrue. What really happened? Okay, so what really happened, which started the space race, the President of the United States was contacted by the Anunnaki race of interior dinosaurs, and that was what gave them the entire idea to go to the moon. What's on the moon? Glad you asked. They wanted to establish a spaceport, which no one else knows, which no one knew about. What happens is, back on Earth, there is another, actually, it's inside. Ignore that. Inside, there was we'll call it the Earthport. Now, the Anunnaki, they have teleportation technology, but they needed us to get to the moon to transplant it there, to establish this spaceport. So what they're doing is they're now able to teleport to and from the Earth and the moon. So the moon, as you may know, is closer to another planet in our solar system. Mars. Mars is where the Anunnaki originated from. There is evidence on Mars that there's been statues discovered. Here's another thing I'm going to show you. On the surface of Mars, there's a series of canyons. I forget the name of them. Anyway, large canyons on Mars. No one knows the exact origin of it. It's shaped in such a way that it appears that a great bolt of lightning struck the surface of the planet and carved these canyons. There was a war on Mars, which devastated the entirety of the Anunnaki race. Now, rather than let their species die, on Mars, they possess the necessary resources for space travel. Let's make that clear. In fact, prior to this moment, there were no reptiles on Earth. They were all brought from Mars. So the human race was able to survive with these beings, not by fighting with them, but they had to ally. And quickly, the Anunnaki realized they're highly intelligent. They were just much more intelligent than humans, and they enslaved the human race. They just came to Earth. Terraformed There was no terraforming. That's not at all part of my research. This is... Earth has always been as it is. Anunnaki came down and enslaved the human race. Now, as I mentioned before, the Anunnaki... Come on, think. The Anunnaki require a great amount of oxygen to maintain their large reptilian size. They're about the same size as about 3 humans stacked on top of each other. So they're pretty big, and it takes a lot of oxygen for a reptile to run a body of that stature. So eventually they had to retreat to the caves and left the humans the surface. And now they very subtly, they have their claws dug into every facet of our human society. They can't come up, very much. It's limited. It should be mentioned that they can shapeshift. They can appear human, but only for short amounts of time. It is believed that the Queen of England is a reptile. Basically, any world leader can be accused of being a reptile, or not a reptile necessarily. Well, so I will provide this syllogism. Every Anunnaki is a reptile, but not every reptile is an Anunnaki. So there's a good possibility that very many of the world leaders are Anunnakis. I misspoke. I said reptile. I didn't mean to. What can you do with... What does all of this information... How does this affect you? Well, you need to understand. You need to understand that what you see... Okay, I misspelled it on the first try. Everything you see is lies nowadays. It's all smoke and mirrors. That's a mirror. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all a facade covering what is really happening. What is really happening is that the Anunnaki are coming back. There's going to be a great war at some point. No one knows when. Alright, that's the Earth. It's an oval again, I know. Those flying saucers, they're going to be coming out of every which way. And they're gonna invade the surface. They've already invaded another race that had to move into the interior of the surface. They already conquered there was 2 subsets of humans, essentially. Well, I shouldn't say humans. Humanoids. There's your run-of-the-mill human. Me. I'm one of them. And you also had a race of giants. The giants also suffered from a lack of oxygen. They could not sustain their giant bodies with the limited amount of oxygen. And they too moved into the interior. And you know what happened? These were the most peaceful of peoples. And there was a great war, much like the one I was talking about on this one. But in this case, it was all inside. The Anunnaki South Pole, North Pole. They entered the South Pole, and they just kept pushing the line of the giants' territory backwards, further and further, to the very tip of the North Pole. And now all that really remains is but a handful. One single tribe was able to remain due to a subterranean mountain structure. It's very hard for anyone to get into this area. Really, only the people who have the proper keys can make the treacherous journey. There are pterodactyls that guard this area, and you don't want to mess with them. Pterodactyl. You don't mess with the pterodactyls that guard Shambhala. It's a legendary place that is said to be tucked away in the mountains of Tibet. However, it can be accessed through the mountains of, I just said that. It can be accessed through the mountains of Tibet. The monks there, they figured it out. And they've been able to coexist with the giants. They contact them every once in a while. The giants are rather secluded. They don't trust many people anymore. They just kind of hang out, and well, I mean, they seem to be doing just fine for themselves, I should say. This has been the, I don't even remember what I called it. That's Pseudoscience Sunday Spectacular. It's going to be some rendition of those three words in the final product. Yeah. Well, thank you for watching, and I will hopefully see you next week.